There's something so weird about One Piece. And no, I don't really mean the universe, and I definitely don't mean the content itself. It's more along the lines of the title. The title's really odd, but before I get into that, opening my tea party just for you. Who is that? It's Ririna, the so-called anime enthusiast fox. It's time for the first episode of Channel U Chats. Now then, my kids, just what's in store for today? Well, we'll compare the differences between the anime titles for One Piece and other shonen anime series and see what makes One Piece so weird in this regard. So I guess let's get started. You see, right after I got the One Piece anniversary concert, I decided to take a shower. And as I was showering, as everyone else does, I had some weird thoughts along the lines of, if I isekai into another world, what do I do first? Or what kind of power should I ask from the deities if I do get isekai'd? Or would I even survive in the first place even if I do have powers? And obviously, my thoughts, basically wandered off into another direction, such as Naruto, Hunter x Hunter, Pokemon, and eventually I landed on one question. Why is One Piece called One Piece? Do you know? Now, before you tell me what Oda-sensei might have said in an interview and in the manga, let me explain why I thought that it was both strange and absolutely brilliant of him to name the series One Piece. Of course, first, let's recall the fact that One Piece was serialized in the late 1900s and that it's in the shonen genre. Now let's name off a few of the most famous and popular anime series out there that was released in the same time frame, and I'll also explain a little bit about each one. Not really about the series itself, but more along the lines of the title. And then you'll start to notice a trend at one point. Let me know down below if you notice the trends a lot earlier than when I do actually talk about the trends and the categories. But let's move on. First one is Naruto. Naruto is the main protagonist and the entire series follows him. Naruto is also the name of the fish cake that has a spiral on it, and his Rasengan, the signature move, is a spiral attack. So the title basically tells us that Naruto is the center and foundation of the series. Pretty straightforward, right? And then there's Bleach. When we think of Bleach in real life, what do we think of? We think of it, using it for disinfecting, whitening, and cleaning. And if it's more literal, it could be referring to the fact that Ichigo has bright orange colored hair. Or if it's more about the functionality of Bleach, which is what I will infer it as, then it could be focused on the Shinigami's job, which is to cleanse Horos. Either way, it's centered on cleansing. So this title can probably refer to a physical aspect of the main character that bothered him for a while, or the fact that the Shinigamis are an integral part of the series. And third, we have Meitantei Conan, or Detective Conan. Conan's basically the main protagonist and is a famous detective as his original self, Shinichi. And he slowly becomes renowned through Mori Kogoro when he becomes Conan, and only the smartest and those deeply involved in the black organization's situation realize his identity. So obviously, the series is centered around Conan and his cases as a detective, which is why the title is Meitantei Conan. Pretty straightforward for that one too. Then there's Hunter x Hunter. Hunters are a huge part of the series, one as an occupation, and second as an integral part of society in that world. Gon, one of our main protagonists, wanted to become a hunter and becomes one, and his friends Kirua, Kurapika, and Deuryo become hunters as well. Most of the conflicts in the series only happen because they were able to get involved in such conflicts due to their hunter status. So being a hunter and living life as a hunter is definitely the foundation of the series and of that world in particular. So I guess you could see why it's called Hunter x Hunter in that aspect, and it makes it pretty clear through the title. And of course, the one before that series, Yu Hakusho. This one's a little tricky, but once you understand what exactly Yu Hakusho means, it becomes pretty clear. But the first U stands for ghost or yure, the second U stands for play, and Hakusho means white book or official document. And since Yusuke was a ghost in the beginning, that was the start of Yusuke's interactions and involvement with Koenma and the spirit world. So we can guess from the title that the ghost play document could be the name of the document that Koenma made about Yusuke to file in the spirit world. After all, the storytelling style is actually like a series of actual reports. Plus, Yusuke being a spirit detective and therefore having to work on supernatural cases adds to this idea a lot. And then, of course, we have one of the more famous ones that everyone knows, Pokémonster or Pokemon. It literally means that it's a monster you could keep in your pocket in the form of Pokeballs, so clearly the series is about those monsters or centers around those monsters, aka Pokemon, even if the main protagonist isn't exactly a Pokemon. It's a very straightforward one for sure. And then, of course, we have Yu-Gi-Oh! That's the last one I'll be briefly talking about before I move on to One Piece. Well, before I move on to the category trend explanation and then about One Piece in particular. But the first Yu is from the word asobi, which means play or game, and Gi is from the word tawamureru, which means frolic, play, or sport, and O, well, you know, O-sama means king, so it's game sport king, or to put it even simpler, you know, with using the translation from the English dub, the king of games, which is exactly what Yami Yugi is, and eventually becomes Yugi's goal to become the true king of games. Plus, the main source of all conflicts is due to their status as the king of games. So becoming the king of games is the main focus and foundation of the series. But what about One Piece? We'll talk about that shortly, but before I do that, I'm sure by now some of you have already figured out what was odd about One Piece and have noticed the trend or even the categorization of the way titles are made for these shonen anime series or even in general anime series. So let me actually list out the categories before I explain what's so weird about One Piece. And obviously there are 3 categories, or maybe not so obvious, but now it is obvious, 3 categories that a shonen anime title can fall under. One of them is major occupation, the second one is main character, and the third one is major object. A lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, but let me explain a little bit more to make it clear to everyone. So for the first one, major occupation. This usually is a single occupation that's the center of the story. So this can mean that the main character has this occupation, or the characters around them have the occupation. Or it can even mean that the main character is striving to get this occupation. Hunter x Hunter and Bleach are actually good examples of this. And I believe you can also think of Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Magi as other examples for major occupation category. And the second one is main character. This usually describes a major aspect of the main character, such as the character's goal, or uses the actual main character's name or title. And Naruto, Meitantei Conan, Yu Hakusho, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Are very good examples of this. And I guess other examples would be Full Metal Alchemist, Kuroko no Basuke, and Inuyasha, if you know any of those. I'm sure you do. And then the third one, the last one, is major object. This typically is the name of a major object that influences the plot or character's actions. Good examples are Death Note, Midai Nikki, and even Pokemon. And while Pokemon aren't exactly objects, they are considered the foundation of the series, and basically this is the best fit for them, category-wise, compared to the other ones. Now, I know many of you can name other anime that not even in the shonen genre that fall under one of these categories, and who knows, maybe there's another category that I just haven't thought of yet, but that exists. So if you know such a category, let me know in the comments below. I would love to know. But of course, going back to our beloved series, we can't help but wonder, then which one does One Piece fall under? Does it even fall under any of these categories? Well, from an outsider's perspective who haven't watched the series at its entirety, One Piece could fall under the major object or major character, or even a mix of both, I suppose. After all, the only thing someone might know of the series but haven't even watched the series is that One Piece is a vast treasure, so that must mean that it falls under the major object category, right? But they might also know that Luffy's trying to find that treasure. So then it must be that the title One Piece falls under the major character category instead. Or maybe it falls under both? Well, here's the kicker that made me laugh as I thought about this. Luffy. He is the key. Although he wants to find the One Piece, he, more than anything, wants to enjoy the long journey with his comrades and become the king of pirates. Interestingly enough, he rarely talks about the One Piece, or at least I can't really recall him talking about it all the time, since he talks more about becoming the king of pirates and going on an adventure and exploring with everyone more than One Piece itself. It's kind of weird to think about, but it makes sense because his #1 goal is to become the king of pirates, not to obtain the One Piece. It just so happens that One Piece is something that people have defined as the requirement to become the king of pirates. But if it wasn't for that, I do wonder if Luffy would even care for the One Piece. What do you think? Do you think that he would still go after the One Piece if it wasn't for that? If there was a different requirement in order to become the king of pirates, do you really think that he would still go after the One Piece? I'm quite curious as to your thoughts. But then, when we think of it that way, why is it even called One Piece? Couldn't it have been called King of Pirates? Or Monkey D. Luffy, or even Straw Hat Luffy? Kind of sounds weird, but still, you get what I mean. And I guess we could argue that One Piece is actually under the major object category, since we know that the news of the One Piece started the Great Pirate Era, in which many pirates sailed to the New World in the hopes of finding that One Piece for themselves. But interestingly, the series starts during a time when people stop believing that the One Piece even existed. In fact, most people's actions are made due to the world government, the four emperors, the navy, the celestial dragons, and any other personal reasons that have nothing to do with the One Piece. And of course, when Whitebeard announced that the One Piece was actually real, that started another increase in pirate activity, or the New Age. But the major pirates in the series who have a lot of influence in the world events and the plot of the series were generally unaffected by that piece of news. At the very least, it wasn't their main reason for sailing as a pirate. The only things that this piece of news has affected were, I guess, the normal civilians, the non-pirate organizations like the Navy, and the minor pirates who we don't really see much of. So, does that mean that we can consider One Piece as a major object category? What do you think? I feel like it just doesn't fit the category since it barely influences the plot, and it barely influences the actions of major characters compared to other anime series. And that's when I started to think about this very differently, from a very different perspective. The purpose. Maybe the purpose behind the title is different from other shonen anime titles. And what I mean by this is that usually anime titles describe what the series will be about or center around, and that's about it. Very, very straightforward. But for One Piece, I just don't feel like the title fits in the same way as the other ones. So what if we thought about it this way instead? You know, when people first heard of the One Piece in the actual series, they set off on the journey to find it, but seeing that no one was able to find it, they began to doubt the authenticity of the so-called treasure, and soon after, people no longer believed that it existed. This strangely reminded me of the people who dropped the series because they expected the series to be about finding the One Piece and having each arc focus on a small aspect, or even give hints about the One Piece, or even seeing Luffy becoming more obsessed with the One Piece. Like myself. Like the younger version of me. And basically, along with everyone else in that world, I expected them to be a lot more obsessed with the One Piece. But perhaps because they didn't see any of that, they felt that the series was pointless and ended up dropping the series. Then, could this be a hint about how someone should watch the series to learn how to enjoy the series at its fullest? In that case, then wouldn't it be right to watch the series with the same kind of mindset Luffy has towards his journey to become the king of pirates? I know it's kind of weird, but hear me out here. From my memory, Luffy has said multiple times that he wanted to explore and go on adventures with everyone, that he wanted to enjoy all of this with them. That's how he always runs off to have fun all the time, being fascinated over the smallest and biggest of things, right? So, assuming that the title One Piece is actually a front, meant as a hook of a story, to grab people's attention, just like how it did for the pirates in the series, then this means that we're not supposed to think of the One Piece treasure as the center of the story from the very beginning. Or else we'll end up like those pirates who started their journey with a single desire to get the One Piece, and then what happened to those pirates? Well, they gave up in the end due to not believing that the One Piece even existed after a long time has passed. Instead, I think we're supposed to be like Luffy's crew and even Luffy himself. We go into the journey with a goal that's not singularly focused on the One Piece, an open mind to accept the flaws and strengths of everyone, a desire to go on an adventure in a vast world, and a determination to slow down and appreciate life as it is for them. To view One Piece without assumptions, if we truly want to savor the most beautiful aspects of the story, which is a world that's truly alive and moving without needing the main characters to make a move, flawed characters who have their strengths and are like us, and more than anything, the way everything's connected, even to the smallest of details, things that people would take for granted or overlook due to it being so small or supposedly minor. You know, I felt a lot stronger about this thought process when I realized that shonen manga and anime were basically consumed by children and teenagers for the most part in Japan. So for example, the idea of a treasure called One Piece attracts those types of people to start the series with the hope of seeing what that treasure is. But instead, what they uncover is far more important than the treasure itself. They experience adventure and a world that's alive and that moves even without the main characters. They experienced the joy of learning about every single aspect of the world we uncovered through the crew's journey, the despair over the inability to fight against the inevitable, the triumph of overcoming the tsunami of absolute power, and so much more. And I'm sure you guys who watch the series know exactly what I'm talking about. So in that sense, believing in the One Piece means to experience a world that you'll never experience if you never become a pirate in that world. And if that's the case, then for our world, continuing to watch One Piece with the right mindset means to appreciate a world that comes to life only because you chose to move forward with the series no matter what, right? And perhaps, more than anything, the promise of the One Piece, as in it exists, actually means that we, as viewers and as readers, will get everything that we want by the end of the series. We'll be able to accomplish our own goal that made us watch the series in the first place. Whether it's to experience a true adventure in a world that's so alive, or appreciate the complexity of the characters, or to learn to embody the crew members who we relate to the most during the hardest moments of our life, and during the best moments of our life. Never taking anything for granted. Or, I could be all wrong, who knows? Unless Oda Sensei has confirmed it or, said something that is totally against everything I just said, then who knows what exactly is the reason why. But either way, from all this discussion, the main takeaway is that One Piece as an anime title is really weird for not being as straightforward as the other late 1900s and early 2000s shonen anime titles. So instead of choosing a title that describes what the series will be about or centered around, Oda Sensei chose a title with the purpose of it being mainly used as a hook and as a promise to not only the pirates, but also to us, the readers and also the viewers. Something that truly reflects the thoughts of the people in the world of One Piece. Meaning that One Piece was never about One Piece the treasure, it was always about the journey, the world, and the people we meet through the story. Although I'm sure all of you who have watched the entire video by now already know what that hook and promise are all about exactly, so I won't repeat myself. But hopefully now you can see why I considered it as such an odd anime title compared to the other ones. Or maybe I'm just putting my foot in my mouth here and not making any sense, which is fine too. Or maybe, like I said before, Oda Sensei explained his reasoning as to why he titled One Piece as One Piece, and maybe they were not the same reasonings that I gave. But either way, it gave me a new appreciation for the series, so I don't really regret spending this time with you guys to share my thoughts about the series like this. And I hope you enjoyed the appreciation and discussion of the series too. So, that being said, my kids, what do you think? Do you think that One Piece fits in one of the previous categories, or do you think that One Piece was a brilliant choice on Oda Sensei's part since it fully reflects the way the world and the characters think and act? Or do you think the series should have been named something else? In any case, let's etch this all into our memory and keep it safe, and as always, formally inviting you to my next tea party, the so-called anime enthusiast fox. Who's that? This was Ririna, so until the next channel chats then, bye!